Hey, this is Antonio. Welcome back to my channel, and we're gonna have some fighting words. So in this video, I want to talk about Errol Spence. He will make a plea to take on Yordenis Ugas. So as we all know, news dropped the other day that Manny Pacquiao is kind of getting stripped, and that WBA title will be going to Yordenis Ugas. We know that Pacquiao's trying to hold out to fight certain people. I guess he wanted the Conor fight, but Conor got beat by Dustin, so that fight doesn't look very realistic. So because Pacquiao's kind of just sitting on it, the WBA is like, we're not just gonna have you sitting on this belt. We can give you something else, but in the meantime, we need to keep it moving. So Yordenis Ugas was pretty much next in line, and he's now got the super. What does that mean? It means now he is on the radar of Errol Spence. Errol has 2 belts already. Takes on Ugas, he can get a 3rd belt. Let me break down this fight really quick for you. So Ugas comes from Cuba, and that Cuban style of fighting is hit and don't get hit. However, Ugas, he's kind of fights like an American for the most part. He is slick. I think that's his strength, that he's slick. He does have a lot of pop in his punches. The question is that going to be enough? Is he going to be slick enough to stay away from Errol Spence? I don't think so. Ugas is big. There's a lot of muscle to him. I don't know if they're exactly the same size, but I feel like Ugas is bigger. I don't mean, on paper, 147. I just mean naturally a bigger guy. That's important because, we're going to weigh in at 147, but we're not going to show up at 147. Somebody might show up at 150, somebody might show up at like 156 or something like that. That extra weight, does play a factor in a fight. I just don't know if Ugas is slick enough. I don't know if he's slick enough to make it through 12 rounds. I don't believe he can put Errol Spence down. Errol's been in there with some guys who can pop. He's been in there most recently with Danny Garcia. Danny can pop. He was also in there with Kell Brook. Kell Brook can pop. Sean Porter doesn't have the most punches, power in his punches, but he does throw like 50 of them at a time. So, you put 50 of those, that's the equivalent of a few good pops. Earl's never hit the canvas, so I know he can take a punch. I know he can go through the fire and come out the other side. Ugas has been in some wars as well. He fought Sean Porter. That was grueling. He lost, but that was a controversial fight. Many people feel like he won. When you fight Sean Porter, it's never going to be a clean, decisive win, especially when you're in the upper echelon or welterweights. So I don't know if he's going to be slick enough to handle Errol Spence for 12 rounds. The thing with Errol Spence is he gets hotter and hotter as the rounds go on. A lot of people, they slow down as the rounds go on. Errol rips it up. He just has another gear, and he just takes it to that another level as the rounds go on. He kind of reminds me of Floyd in that sense, or perfect example, Roy Jones. Roy could just go and go and go, especially when he was feeling it. Pretty much any of his fights in the 90s, like he would just go and he would be just as fresh and just as jumpy on his feet in the 12th round as he was in the 1st round. And Earl kind of has that to him. He kind of grinds you out. I don't know. Another thing with Ugas that I do worry about is his shot selection and his punches. I don't feel like he throws enough. I don't feel like he has enough volume in his punches. I do know there's some pop to him, but he's not a big combination guy. He's more of a 1-2, get out of there or move to the side or off. Now that is very much like a Cuban style. You look at Lara, he does it, pretty much all the Cubans do it, hit, don't get hit, which is the name of the game. That's why they call it boxing. But that's more of an amateur style. It's more of an amateur circuit type of way. It's not the most fan pleasing, but if you fight Errol will definitely make it fan pleasing because he's going to be in your face all night, either until the ref stops it or he stops you, but he's going to be in your face. Now, the plus side for Errol is because Ugas doesn't necessarily throw a lot of punches, Errol can just simply be himself and just overwhelm you. He doesn't stop. His work rate is through the roof. He will just punch and punch and punch, push, punch, wrestle a little bit. He can make it dirty. He doesn't necessarily have to play it clean, especially for somebody like Ugas who wants to keep it clean, who wants to hit and move and slide and dip and duck. It would be in his favor to make it a little dirty, because I feel like when you have a clean style, it just kind of ruffles your feathers, and I think it makes him uneasy. If you look at Floyd's roughest fights, Floyd is a slick fighter. You think about his roughest fights, you're talking about Maidana, you're talking about Castillo, you're talking about, who else made it rough for Floyd? Ricky Hatton made it rough in the first like 4 rounds. He made it rough as well. But those are guys who are willing to get in there and push him around and kind of make it dirty. I'm not necessarily saying that Errol's a dirty fighter. He's not a dirty fighter, not by far. But I am saying he's physical. And by him being physical, he can rough Ugas up and push him around and kind of big brother him throughout those rounds. Slick fighters don't like that. They want to keep it clean and move it a little bit, shift out. They pop, they shift, that kind of thing. They don't necessarily want to be in there with somebody who's going to push them, back them down into a corner, maybe elbow them a little bit, just make it rough and gritty. They don't necessarily want to grind out a fight. They want to point out a fight. So I easily see Errol Spence winning that fight. I don't think there's anything that Ugas can do. I definitely don't think there's anything that Errol hasn't seen, to be honest with you. Not to say that Errol's been there with a lot of slick guys, but you also got to keep in mind who Errol Spence trains with. He trains with Jermell Charlo, who is also a unified champ, and he's also a champion at 154. So when you put that into consideration, he's got another champ in his camp under that umbrella in Texas. And then he's bigger and he's aggressive. Charlos don't get enough credit for how technical they are. They actually have some of the best jabs I've seen in the game. When you are sparring somebody like that for an entire camp, and then you go in there with the Ugas, I'm not saying he's going to be a walk in the park, but what I am saying is there are too many things that Ugas is going to present to you that you haven't seen for the last 2 months in training camp. That's all I'm saying. Especially when you factor in power. If you can take Jermell Charlo's punches, if you can take his power shots, I don't feel like there's going to be anything that Ugas can give you that's going to make Errol back up and be like, whoa, I haven't felt that before, or whoa, this is a new look. I don't know what to do with this. No. His last couple fights have been a little grueling. I mean, if you think about it, he fought Sean Porter, and then he fought Danny Garcia, and he trains with Jermell Charlo. So he fought former champions, and he trains with a current unified champ, who, by the way, is bigger. Now, when you just factor those things in, and you look at who Ugas has gone up against in his last couple fights, it's safe to say who the victor is going to be in this matchup. I could be wrong. I doubt it, but I could be wrong. I just don't see any way Ugas can win, to be honest with you. If he were to just keep it to a point fighting system, if he could stick and move, but the way Errol fights, he's just going to be glued to you. He's going to be glued to you, and there's no way Ugas wins this. I'm not even trying to go down that road. There's just no way Ugas wins this. And I hate to be so judgmental of Ugas because I think he's a great fighter. I think he has a lot of skill, and I think he can make a lot of noise. And I think if he had if he earned that belt. I'll say it like that, because keep in mind, because Manny wasn't doing anything with it, he got the belt. So if he earned that belt, I think he would have a different mindset with the belt. Like, I earned this, nobody's taking this from me. But it was more like, Manny's not doing anything with this, here, you take it. That kind of thing. So there's a different mindset when somebody says, ooh, thank you, as opposed to someone going out there and said, I want what you have and I'm going to fight you and take it from you. Two completely different mindsets. Now, just because I said that doesn't mean he won't take pride in taking that WBA Super, but he didn't get it the traditional way, which is in the ring, staring down somebody else across the ring from him, and they fight it out, either till he renders him unconscious, the ref stops it, or his team throws in the towel. I just don't think Ugas can take on Errol Spence, and I don't think he's going to come out the victor if they fight. I'm not going to say if. I think they're definitely going to fight. I mean, Errol wants that belt. Errol definitely wants to be a unified champion, and Errol hasn't backed down from anybody thus far, and he's made it very clear since he jumped on the scene that those were his plans, and he wasn't going to be, say, a Keith Thurman who would just kind of hold on to a belt, and, you know, when a good fighter arises, suddenly he gets a little sore in his elbow or his hands or something like that, and maybe he needs to sit down. Errol's been very open, very honest, and he wants all the smoke, and he wants it with whoever has a belt. Ugas has that belt, and he's pretty much next in line. So that's my thoughts. That's my take on it. And as always, like and subscribe.